I'm not going to worry about your level of concern.
Yoy and double yoy.
We talking about
Twitter. Triple yoy.
Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that.
Quadruple yoy.
This is a big game because we're in it.
Never give up on the Steelers.
Go get number 7. This is a product of your journey, and your journey's not over yet. Woo!
We mock ourselves.
All right. Let's maybe stop the music. It's all come down to this. 9 months of waiting for the season. 13 weeks fired up for the season. And then 4 weeks where we're all going to throw out the baby with the bathwash. Is that what they're saying?
I believe so, yes.
Why even play the game, according to my social media feed? And
the handicappers.
Yeah, this isn't even the most. Is this the most we've been favored going to the playoffs? I feel like it's 7.5 to something like that. Has been.
I heard it was 10 yesterday.
10.
Same
Okay.
It was in Buffalo.
Same difference. Same as in Buffalo. There you go. So it's what Jin's talking about. The conversation about the Steelers' social media conversation, exposing all your hot and toxic takes. I'm Kyle Kreis here with Greg Benevent.
Hello.
And I'm like, just to get excited for the. I'm had to stay off social media. It was just like
Which
not
is
a place.
good. I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Not a place to get excited about this week's game. Where was the place to get excited? I don't know. I couldn't find it. Wasn't anywhere on my radar.
I don't think it was anywhere. I think it was a month ago. I think that was the last time someone the social media was excited. But that's why I'm so glad, having been on social media now and having been around Pittsburgh and the fan. That's why another reason I'm so glad to do this podcast is that I can see, if you're steeped in that all the time, how you couldn't help but let some of that negativity soak in.
It was bad back home. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it just, you're driving around everywhere. You have the fan on, or even just everything. Yes, absolutely. And of course, the 4-game losing streak doesn't help. But I mean, there's no way that you couldn't, when you're just soaking in negativity, there's no way that some of it can't just come into your skin.
I hope they do fire everyone, and then that gives me a jumping off point. Then I can be like, finally put this away. Why do I spend so much time on a game that I don't play? And I'm looking through my closet, like, what do I have all these jerseys for? What is this even about? Like, no one cares. I could go to the bar, no one's like, oh, it's a Cam Hayward day, Kyle. What am I like? Just all the money I've spent. I could have been. I don't know what I could have spent it on. Donuts or something
equally frivolous. I mean, something else that wouldn't, like you said, if it was donuts, you wouldn't be doing a podcast about donuts. At least, hopefully.
Maybe that's the way this off season might go. Welcome to Glaze. What Jin's glazing about? All right, let's get to some of these takes. Starting with at Mark Cabali. You would have to say the Steelers are easily the worst team out of 14 that are in the playoffs, maybe by a significant margin, too. Wow, pep rally in effect. Wouldn't you say there, Mark Cabali?
Which is interesting because he's also, I think, a day later said, I think they're going to win this game. And then he also went in one of his, hopefully well-compensated Twitter rants, tirades, monologues from Pat McAfee saying that, that he felt that that Tomlin should stay, that they are building something, that this is a better team than it was last year. So I don't know. I think maybe Cabali's just emotionally volatile guy.
It feels like a better team than last year. It's the record. It's not. It feels like a better team than last year. Is it? I guess it's the same. 10-7 is 10-7.
I think the team is a little bit better than last year, but I think this weekend is going to let us know a lot as to how much better than last year this team is. I mean, it's. I hate to think of it as a test of that, but it's a test of that.
More takes. I think this might be more how I'm feeling. At Mr. No Followers 2, JB. If you would have told me in August the Steelers would be a 5th or 6th seed, I'd take that running away, especially with that schedule. This 10-win team is light years better than last year's 10-win team, especially offensively. How many light years ahead? What mock do we have to put the 2023 team in to catch up with 2024?
I think the team is better. I don't know if it's light years better, but it's also hard for where I'm sitting today. And not just that, you talk about toxic tweets. I'm sitting in an actual toxic environment with this air. But I think it's hard to feel that way, even though it might be true, just because the crushing weight of the 4 straight losses is so heavy right now. But I do think as like 1,000-foot view or whatever, you can say the team is better than last year. How much better, I think, is going to be determined real soon.
This is the worst finish to a season for a playoff team in Steelers franchise history. 0-4. I mean, well, the next was 2020, right? 1-4.
Yeah, Cowher's second year, I forget what it was, but that was pretty bad too. I don't know what the specific numbers were, but they definitely, the second half of the season was not great.
Yeah, what year? 93? Is that what we're
the
talking
year
about?
they lose in Kansas City, but they put up a very good fight. I believe they go down in overtime to Montana and the Chiefs.
Yeah, Montana, we're up in the third quarter in
Yeah.
that game, and Montana comes, he scores twice in the fourth to take it to overtime, and including a fourth down. Was there a fourth down?
There was some big play. I don't know, was it a blocked punt? It was a fourth down conversion. There was something. But also, I use that as an example, not just if they lose that way this weekend, I can also say, hey, there was progress this year. It wasn't they went down, 20 points, 13 points in the first or second quarter again or something. Like, I would see that a close loss as progress for this team as well.
Yeah, what about the 2007 where they finished 1-3, and then that was the David Gerard game in the playoffs,
right? Which I was at and was also tough. But wow, they were in that game. I mean, it's if Gerard doesn't get a very tough holding call, or forget if they don't call holding on, then the Steelers very possibly win that one at the end. So that's. But again, close game. I mean, and they were down big in that one, I want to say, but Ben brought them back. So again, I can live with a close loss. I could see that as progress as well with the way things have been the last so many years.
How's this for a stat? As for when it comes to bad finishes, only one Steelers team that's finished the season like 1 or 3 or worse has had a win in the playoffs. That was the Mike Tomczak led 1996 team that finished 1-3, but then beat the Colts. Somehow they still, despite losing 3 of their last 4, they still won the division. But beat the Colts, and then
I was at that game too.
Went to Foxborough in the fog. I don't think anyone watched that game because it was
you couldn't see it,
yeah.
And that was also Rod Woodson's last game, and that was the one where very much all of us were like, you got to get rid of Rod Woodson, and the idea was apparently you just needed to get rid of Rod Woodson the corner, not Rod Woodson the eventual safety.
Who will we get rid of after this game? Will it be? I don't. Well, that'll
we have a long time to talk about that.
The attacks on my coach are louder and louder. I think I'm more and more a Tomlin fan than even just a Steelers fan at this point.
I think that's true.
Kind of just like, what? Like, oh, and then I was just like, I'm time to defend Tomlin, and then I was just like, why? I'm not even going in on these people. But we do have some tweets here. At the Standard 412, the Standard. The Steelers haven't won a playoff game since 2016. Crickets. We've heard that forever. Since then, they've had 2 GMs, 2 defensive coordinators, 4 offensive coordinators, 6 different quarterbacks, and 1 head coach. Is Mike Tomlin the problem?
That's how you get engagement online.
Is this trying to argue that it's it's all on Tomlin? Oh, they've had 2 GMs, 2 defensive coordinators. Yeah, most teams have gone through like 10 coordinators, and if you're the Browns, 30 quarterbacks. We're still waiting for a quarterback in Cleveland. So I don't know how this is a knock. It's supposed to be a knock on Tomlin. Oh my gosh, 4 offensive coordinators. What? Oh my.
Yeah, that was one of the. Again, that was more for engagement than perhaps for enlightenment.
Yeah, definitely not. I can't handle these Tomlin. But, it's how many times do I have to type it out? But it's despite the losses. Everything else that he brings to the table is why the Steelers will not fire Mike Tomlin. When you had all these players say they wanted to come to Pittsburgh to play for Tomlin, when you got Russ Wilson saying he's not just the best coach in football, but in all of sports. You got people like Willie Colon and Ray McLeod saying how, Tomlin basically saved their lives for not even lack of a better word. Those are their words. It's everything that, despite the losses, despite no playoff wins since then. Yeah, duh. We all see that. We all are very aware of that fact and that reality. But it's everything else that he brings, which is why.
I just want to piggyback on that with something Carboli pointed out that felt really intelligent to me. And Carboli's, again, lengthy manifesto about why Tomlin should stay the coach of this team. His point is that everything else has changed in the last so many years. Tomlin is the one thing that hasn't, and that's just in the last few years with the rise of Khan. It's an entirely different scouting department. It's an entirely different everything but Tomlin. So to keep Tomlin also is to give him a chance to, with all the games he's won, to build on this new thing that they have around him. So that makes a lot of sense as opposed to severing all absolute ties to the past.
Yeah, who would you rather have? Do you rather have Mike Tomlin, who proved he could win with Duck Hodges, or do you want to take a shot at
Ben Johnson? That's the one I keep hearing because
Yeah.
Detroit's had a great offense in the regular season.
Still haven't won a Super Bowl in 40 years or something, right?
They haven't. They lost a title game. They haven't even been to a Super Bowl yet.
So
we're supposed to believe that this is going to be the guy to come in and save them.
Rather be a Lions fan or a Steelers fan? I mean, yeah, it feels good this year. It feels good these last 2 years, but same outcome as the Steelers. Oh, you were knocked out in the first round, or you were knocked off in the last round. What's still knocked off? Just like these takes are knocked off. The pulse of Steelers Nation comes from @_Adam Crowley. Adam Crowley. Should the Steelers move on from Mike Tomlin? 80.9% yes, 19.1% no. I laugh at that. It's like, good thing the fickle fans are not part of the process. I don't even know if could Art the second even fire Tomlin at this point, or is the power structure kind of reversed? I think that hey, Coach, do you think it's time? And it's like, it's not time. It's like Mariah Carey with Christmas.
I think that's a good point. I think that's also where it was with Noel at the end, where it's like, okay, they had to come down and sit and agree with it together. And I think that would be how they would have to move on from Tomlin. I mean, it's easy to put these polls out after, again, a four-game losing streak and going into the playoffs where there's so much uncertainty. But yeah, they are just always one win away from all of this changing.
Yeah, if Noel got to punch his own ticket, and Noel went 5 years without a playoff appearance in the 80s. So, Steelers, oh man, they're just putting up 10-7 records, mediocre. Like, it's such a different dichotomy. It's like, if you want the real dark ages, that was the 80s. 5 years without a playoff appearance. We're talking, out of it in December. At least we're still fighting for it. I remember, in that part of the 80s, I can just remember because Pittsburgh Tire on Pittsburgh Street in Uniontown had a giant Paul Bunyan that during the dynasty they had painted into a Steeler player.
Makes sense.
But then, somewhere around 87, 88, when, Steelers hadn't made the playoffs in 5 years, then that went back to a Paul Bunyan. And so, that's how fickle the Steelers fans are. 5 years, no playoffs. Now it's like 5 years playoffs, just no playoff wins, and it's like, oh, tear down the Paul Bunyan and make it whatever. I've been trying to find pictures of that as a Steeler, but I can only find it as the Paul Bunyan.
Oh,
but there are it exists out there.
No, I believe you.
Okay. More Tomlin takes at Michael Beck 56. Michael Beck. Go to the 540 mark, and Shefty mentions teams lobbying calls to the Steelers to make a trade for Tomlin. For the love of everything holy, let this happen. Let this happen, fair weather fan Michael Beck. Trading for Tomlin, what would it have to what would it have to take? Tomlin says he doesn't have that many years left anyway. So to trade him, where he'd have to move cities and all that, and come into a different new environment. I don't even know what the draft capital would be for a trade like that.
I have no idea. It'd have to be more than it was for Peyton, because Peyton was out already at the Saints. Like, he wasn't coaching the team when they traded for him. The only thing funnier than trading Tomlin is I saw they had the take that the what was it? The Bears GM said that all options are on the table in finding a new coach, and so many Yinzers were like, "Oh, that means he's going to trade for Tomlin." It's like, no, he means he's not going to hamstring himself from the moment he takes this new job.
Yeah, right. They've already interviewed, or haven't they interviewed? But they're already asking to interview Arthur Smith.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So all these Steeler fans were like, "Yeah, Arthur Smith." Well, I guess around the league they had a different opinion on him. They're giving him head coaching interviews all of a sudden.
Right. I mean, I'm not sure you want to follow the example of the Jets and Bears, and the Jaguars made a point of not announcing that they're going to interview Smith. They aren't, or at least they aren't in this first cycle. But yes, the fact that it's the first time in a long time that Steelers coordinator is getting head coaching interviews does say something.
And then Tomlin will just promote from within if Arthur Smith goes. Whatever. Okay. All right. I'm sure that's next week's podcast. Let's talk about my quarterback.
It's my quarterback.
It's time for my quarterback tweets. Russ stuff from at Heisenberg. Steelers quarterback situation. This is a poll. Expand more if you have your own thoughts. Re-sign Justin Fields, 67.9%. Sign J.J. McCarthy.
Trade for J.J. McCarthy.
18.2%. Other, 9.8%. And then re-sign Russ, 4.1%. Russ is on the outs, I guess.
Yes.
How does this past, well, you could say the past month, but specifically the past week, affect what you think is going to happen with Russ?
I mean, I'm kind of at the point where I would have to see Russ play a pretty good game in the playoff to, strongly consider bringing him back as the unquestioned guy. I certainly don't want to trade for J.J. McCarthy. There's nothing out there to sign. I'm certainly not giving a bunch of money to Sam Darnold or, God help us all, Aaron Rodgers. The odds are Russ. I mean, the options are Russ or Fields, and I was one of the people less impressed with Fields through the first part of the season. So yeah, but I'd have to see Russ play a lot better in this game versus what we've seen in the last month. And look, the offensive line has been bad. The defense has been very bad, except for the Bengals game when it was very good. So it's not like it's all been on him. But, man, for this team to have real growth and to have more hope for next season, they have to get more out of quarterback, and particularly more out of quarterback against genuinely top-level contending teams than they've had in the last month.
How much was... There was some on Russ against the Bengals, but there also seemed to be drops or, close calls. That
Pickens had one catch for no yards. And how many drops? He yelled more at the fans than he did catch the ball.
That's not a great stat line. That's not going to win you your fantasy championship. Fights over first downs. Will they do a Hard Knocks after this playoff game? I don't think they will. I think it's over.
What they said is last I'd heard, as someone that doesn't watch the show but reads the recaps, I'll watch it like 3 years from now, is that it goes as long as an AFC North team is alive.
Oh, okay.
So they'll be down. So there'll be at least one more week of Hard Knocks after this, one way or the other.
All right. They haven't focused a lot of energy on Pickens, and I wonder if that might change.
If that's where they could, because what is it? Teams get a very minimal amount of editorial control. That's why you didn't see anything about Deontay with the Ravens.
Yeah.
So I wonder if maybe that's where the Steelers decide to use their strike the jury mark is with Pickens.
Speaking of quarterbacks, these are our options. At Jack_Sperry, Jack Sperry. List of potential QB upgrades for the Steelers in 2025. Matthew Stafford. Is he even is he a free
The
agent?
guy going into the playoffs that won his division that's playing a playoff game this weekend? I'm going to say no.
Sam Darnold?
I mean, I can't imagine why they wouldn't re-sign him again unless it's not dissimilar situation to Russ in that if he goes out in this playoff and looks very, very bad and they lose to the Buccaneers or even next week and they win or they edge them out and then lose badly to their division rival, the Lions. I mean, I could see Sam being around, but again, being an option is someone you could sign, but man, he's going to be around forever. I mean, you're going to have to start everything all over again, so I don't know about that.
You know, what's the difference? I figure
Right.
if Russ had Justin Jefferson and the other guy, Addison, I'm sure he'd be throwing up good numbers
and a
too.
better offensive line.
Derek Carr. I don't think I want that.
Yeah, again, how's that? What you said, how's that any different?
Geno Smith?
Isn't he about the same age? I mean,
He's got to be like 34, 35.
This is a
right?
roster that the Steelers roster as constructed right now is better than the Seahawks. But again, I don't know. That feels like a real placeholder. It feels like it's Geno Smith. Like if Russ goes and Geno can't get a job as a starter, so you like try to bring him in to back up Justin. I have no idea. I can't see Geno, even though I like him.
J.J. McCarthy, who we already talked about.
Who we don't know is actually available.
And then Justin Fields is next on this list. Is that really it? I mean, we're looking at 6 or 7 guys.
But, I mean, but the guys that we know right now might be available. I mean, maybe somebody does badly in the playoffs and their team says we're done with him. I don't know. Maybe the new guy in Jacksonville is like, we're getting rid of Lawrence. What do you want for him? I don't know. But I mean, all these options are more appealing than the son of Deion Sanders if we're going that route. But hopefully he's gone by the time the Steelers pick, regardless.
No, I read that Oakland is going to hire Dion as the head coach so they can draft his son, with the 4th or 6th pick or whatever. And I'm thinking, wow, that's a story there.
That's where you got to imagine Tom Brady walks into the meeting and says, "Guys, come on, we can't do this. This is asinine." But
that's a hard knock season.
In many ways, that is hard knock season on multiple levels.
Well, I think that the band is trying to take the field. Doesn't the band want to take the field? There we go. Not a renegade season, really.
No, like I said, I managed to leave the Chiefs game before they booed Renegade. I imagine Renegade was much better received against the Bengals. I was not at the game because my mom had foot surgery the day before, so I figured we'd all watch the game together. But I imagine Renegade was better received because the offense came to life in that 4th and made it a game. But yeah.
That's the thing. We haven't had. Russ was known for 4th quarter comebacks, but we hadn't had many opportunities. Then when we did have one, it didn't work out.
Right. That was the interception return for a touchdown to Marlon Humphrey, where somewhere he's recording a podcast too. No, I mean it's what I want to see in this game is I want to see them not go down by double digits in the first half. That's what we haven't seen. That bothers me as much, if not more, than the long string of playoff losses, whatever, because that's the one constant, is that they've never really been in these games. So that's what I want to see. I want to see a game they're in.
Yes, remember, so last year was not the Chiefs, the Bills.
Yes.
Right? And so, until Mason threw that red zone, end zone
but
interception.
They were down double digits in the first half again. It was after George's fumble, I want to say, on the Steelers side of the field, and the defense, and they're down 13, and you're already starting to rationalize, okay, how could they possibly get back in this? And then, so they almost, right, and they had to make that run, and then Mason threw the interception late. But, that's not how you're going to get back in these games. There's no getting back in games against good teams in playoffs on the road.
Yeah, Chiefs game, we started with a fumble recovery for the touchdown, but then
started with several defensive stops, but the offense was never in the game. I mean, the defense gets 5 stops against Mahomes and Kelsey in Arrowhead. You have to be able to score to take advantage of that. And the offense wasn't good enough, and they didn't. So that's what they haven't been in any of these games. They haven't been competitive. They haven't played complementary football. That's what I want to see. I mean, I hope they win. I'm sure I'll be able to find a way to talk myself into it by Saturday afternoon. But that's what I want at the minimum. I want a game they're in. I want a game they're not down more than double digits in the first half.
Browns game, that was certainly not the case.
No,
right?
that
5
was-
turnovers in that game.
Give up 21 points in the first quarter. Yes.
What was before? Was it
The Jaguars?
Jaguars 2018.
Same thing. Yeah. It's now that score's deceptive because
Yeah.
it's like 45-42. But like no, they were down 21-0. They were down way big, way early.
Busted fourth early with Lev Bell, and then
Who
Ben
showed up 5 minutes before the game?
And then Ben had was it a fumble or a pick six?
There's definitely, I want to say it was to Miles Jack. I want to say it might have been a fumble, it might have been a pick six, but Miles Jack had at least one turnover for the Jaguars in that game.
So that's the last 4 playoff games, right? So what's I don't
No,
know.
I mean there's a New England championship game at where again they're down. I think they're only down 10 points in that one, but that's almost a lifetime ago. But Ben has no receivers to throw to. Lev Bell gets hurt. They hit the backup running. I don't remember if it was Blunt at that point or not, but they hit the running back. It gets tackled on 4th and goal, and they don't score. I mean, it's they were only down 10-0 in that one, which looks like a manageable first half score compared to all of the games that came later.
So we need a good first quarter. Unfortunately, this season has not been good for first quarters or first drives.
Well, I mean, I think that's interesting because Tomlin is that there's comments of his that when he says something at the press conference, then it gets, I don't know if it's necessarily taken out of context, but blown out of proportion because he said something, he didn't say like starts don't matter. What he said was basically like they're a one part of the game compared to everything else. And people took it to mean, he's saying starts don't matter, so they don't prepare for the starts. No, they do prepare for the starts. Maybe the other guys prepare better. Maybe their guys come out slow. Maybe they have the wrong plan. Maybe the plan isn't executed right. Whatever. They haven't started well, but Tomlin at no point said, it doesn't matter how you start a game.
Yeah, what does he say? Something like it has less to do with the outcome of the game than what happens in the fourth quarter or something, I think. I don't know, but I think that's just a matter of how time works. Usually the last few seconds of a game matter more than the first few. But maybe wouldn't it be nice to get out to a 10-0 lead and then not even have to worry about the fourth quarter?
Absolutely.
One of those like, can we survive the fourth? I like the feeling of that all of a sudden. Like,
Yes.
are we going to blow it in the fourth and we don't?
Yes, it's been a month since the last win against the Browns.
All right, how about a couple odds and ends? This is from @Tommy Jaggy. Now we've got the Steelers' top 10 PFF grades for the season, according to PFF. Number 1, T.J. Watt. Number 2, Cam Hayward. Number 3, Alex Highsmith. Number 4, Nick Herbig. So, highest paid defense. Well, the 4 best players this season were defense. Number 5, Najee Harris, first on offense. Number 6, Russ Wilson. Number 7, Elandon Roberts. 8, George Pickens. 9, Zach Frazier.
Yeah.
10, Peyton Wilson. So 2 rookies, top 10 players there. Does that sound about right? How, would you put anyone else?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think this was a good rookie class, despite half of it being out for the season, either before the season started or at the very beginning. When you look at Wilson and Fautano, and even that 7th-round pick guy who got hurt in the last preseason game, that at least was going to get play on special teams, if not as a backup in the secondary. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's that stands to reason with what we've seen. I'm not sure how much they do against the run in this, because I know some people talked about Herbig having some issues with that. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, are you still going to play the run heavy, and is the strategy to let MVP Lamar Jackson beat you? I mean, that seems to be the way they've been going all season.
Yeah, well, I think yes, just because we saw what happens when you let Henry run a lot with the ball, and there's really no chance in the game. So I think having Lamar beat you is at least that gives you a lot more of a chance versus like, it's another 40-yard run. What are we doing here?
At least they have to catch the pass. There's a chance they could drop them, and usually
especially
that
with
happens.
Flowers being out too, I think that's kind of a big thing.
Whoa, we need it. Okay, last thing. How about a little what if from @Markabali? What if the Steelers go into Baltimore and beat the Ravens? Fire Tomlin, change to Tomlin's best coaching job. Russ is washed, change to give him $30 million a year. A lost season is changed to successful season. blow it up is changed to need to add a piece. If they lose, then of course the former is in play, but rather than latter. But what if? What if it all comes down to? Could this whole season come down to this game?
Yes.
Everything we said about Tomlin and George Pickens and Russ and Najee looks a lot different after a win in Baltimore.
Absolutely, because this season, while it is 10-7 and a winning record and a competitive record, it's, it really has been two separate seasons. There's been the season, where they played very well against some teams that were middle of the road, as well as some teams that ended up being very good, just Denver, and teams that are very good versus Baltimore. But the last month can't be erased. They were revealed not to be a real contender. They were not good enough and are not good enough to compete with the league's best teams at this time. So with so much competing evidence on both sides, I can see it coming down to this game.
All right, so we need a win then. That sounds like it's a must-win game, finally, a legitimate must-win game.
Oh, that's what all playoff games are. I mean, they're win or go home. It's the tournament. It's everyone's talked about a clean slate or whatever, which, sure, great. But yes, in the single elimination tournament, the single game matters.
Jobs on the line. Everyone's there's pink slips in the lockers after the loss, or there's new contracts in the lockers after the win. Could it be that simple? Omar Khan is down there like Santa during the fourth quarter, going, "Okay, Russ, you get a pink slip, or you get an extension."
Or even just if they lose, maybe they do want to have Russ back, but at a far lower number than if they win. I mean, Baker got that new contract after playing real well in some playoff games for Tampa Bay. I think that's what it would take. Again, with them being 10-point underdogs again, and as bad as this last month has been, and how horrible they've looked through almost all of it, I don't want to say there's such a thing as a moral victory, but man, a close loss has to be viewed very differently than one that isn't.
Settling for close losses in the playoffs.
Well, that's what happened. I mean, that's where this team is right now. After a 4-game losing streak, after all the getting blown out in every playoff game that we've seen for the last so many years, which again is not the fault. There's so much that goes into that. But that's what I want to see. I want to see a tight game. I'd love to see them win, but man, I don't know.
All right. Well, that's what we've been talking about.
That's what we've been talking about.
It's just a few days away. If today's Thursday, Friday, so so about 48
Saturday
hours.
Night.
About 50, 48, 56 hours away from everything. Everything. Okay. All right. Keep the conversation going on social media if you dare.
Wear it.
Yeah.
Wear a mask.
I'm gonna say maybe I'll turn off social media. And then I'm like, no, we're gonna have to do a show next week, no matter what. So I guess I will not be shutting off my social media.
Well, I mean, but if they lose, you don't need to go on social media to know the takes. Like you don't have to look at Twitter to know what the takes are. We could write the takes right now if they lose and be exactly right. It would be like we were AIing the takes.
We'll see. Maybe we'll predict the takes. See how close the predictions are to reality. That might be fun.
That might be.
Okay. Well, until next week. Keep listening. We're gonna win. We're gonna win the police playoffs.
Good
so get
hear.
excited.
Good to
Okay.
hear.
Until next week. Keep listening to your coach.
Be their best selves. That's going to be required.
Stay in school.